and it's almost like a lot of little branches are right at ground level that I need to see, but then I've got this. So all these are going straight back here, but then I've got this nice curvy trunk. I kind of like this and find this more interesting. So what I'm going to do is try to find out where this is coming off the back here, and we might be able to even split it. Good thing about junipers too, and I'll show you later, we're going to make some shari on it, some deadwood coming down the trunk. You can get rid of or strip off 70% of the outside of this tree and almost 80% of the top of it and still have that tree survive. They're really good too, because if you do cut a lifeline or a vascular flow to one part of the tree, it will reroute its vascular flow in order to make that tree survive. So they're really, really tough. Branch off, and that'll kind of give me or that side of the tree off, and I'll work up and I'll show you as I'm doing this. But I kind of cut an area here where I'm going to start peeling up. In fact, if I get this guy here, these are great tools. A scorp is what they're called. They're kind of I've got a right and a left scorp. And you can kind of see where this is going now. If you kind of see the grain, and it'll tell you which way to take it. So I just kind of start with it, and it'll tell me which way I'm going with it. So you start cutting and you peel up. I normally start in the canopy of the tree and work my way down, but again, since I did what I did to it, I want to get it peeled up there. That way it doesn't have to reroute too much.
So you don't want to do that shari right underneath one of the branches?
Not right underneath one of the branches, if possible.
So you give it some room to reroute
Yes.
to that branch,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And it's pretty amazing what it does, because I've gone down and kind of weaved between branches and stuff like that, and left like a 1/4 inch of live vein on it, and that'll plump right up, and it really looks dramatic after a year or two. You do have to go in and re-clean the edges on these. I do that every spring because they do want to roll over and close up that gap. And to keep it looking old, to keep it looking like it's weathered, and keep that shari visible, you want to preserve the shari, of course, with some lime sulfur, and keep the edge of that live cut so that it
So
doesn't
it's just
lower.
like going in and cleaning that off,
Yeah.
like taking a scab
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
All right.
yeah. So you
What tool
kind
do you use, Mark, to clean that up?
To-
Each year?
to clean it up each year. I'm going to be getting more in Japan, but this is what they use over there. It's a little wire brush with very short bristles on it, and it's like, why don't we put about 20 of them in it? They look great. Other than that,
And how big is the leaf on it?
they're big. They're big leaves, but you can reduce the leaf size on those. There's a technique which I can teach you how to do that as well. So,
Really?
yes.
What's that technique?
It's secret. I can't tell you. No, it's
I figured that, or you
no.
just...
All it is in May, you take off about 50% of leaves. All the larger leaves, leave the smaller leaves, and then you deadhead each terminal. So you cut the terminal, and then it will back bud and start putting out new flesh of growth. Most of those will be smaller as well.
And you do that in May?
You do that in May, and if you do that a couple years in a row, you'll get enough ramification that you'll get about half the size of the leaves and double the amount of branches on it.
So you're cutting the leaves
Cutting the
back?
leaves off at the petiole. So you cut the petiole,
Yep.
yeah, and they will bud back from the base of that petiole.
Which tree?
Ginkgos. Yeah, because I actually have a Chi-Chi that's about 100 years old that was imported from Japan that one of our members had. And he passed away, so they sold it to me. And they looked like Japanese fans. I mean, the leaves were that big, huge on them. But I used that technique on it. And I have
And then,
1-inch leaves on it now.
really?
Yeah,
Wow. And how often do you do that? You do
just that
again?
once a year. And, well, as you see, if you see larger leaves towards middle of summer, you can still cut those off. Yeah, absolutely. The more you keep it thinned out, the more back budding you get as well. These are jending pliers, so you crush the bark with them, makes it come off real easy, especially this time of year when they're actively growing. If you do this in the wintertime, it doesn't work as well. I kind of crush it from all around. Not so bad that you're crushing the heartwood as well, but you want to crush it enough where it loosens it from the cambium from that heartwood, and then it peels off. You can see, super easy. See, as luck would have it, that connected back here. So. So the way the live vein looks, I won't lose any of this foliage at all because it's this is connected to that one. And I think I will, just for the heck of it. I'm going to take this on down right to the base, just for that added interest in it. If you have an X-Acto knife, box knife, or anything like that, works well with this stuff. Which I could do this.
Make that the top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this could be the, I like this better.
And these junipers will back bud
Oh,
pretty well, so.
profusely.
Yeah.
Profuse.
So if you have some bare areas close to the trunk,
They
they
will
will.
send out new branches.
bud out.
Just be patient.
Yeah.
Loves wiring. It's my Zen time. It's my meditation. I could do it every day, all day. So that was the nice thing about going to Japan, because I was able to do it all day, every day.
They like to.
Yeah. So you work from the bottom of the tree up. Never work just one side up, or never work from the top down. Some people get that. Some people don't. I have one guy that I've been trying to teach for the past 10 years. He's an orthopedic surgeon, but he'll inevitably start at the top, or he'll inevitably go from the bottom to the top on one side. It's like, what? Haven't we talked about this before? So, yeah. And he actually did a 101 class for our club last year, that was a disaster too. I was late getting to the meeting. He was having them all work on larches in the middle of summer, which you
I know
don't
who
do
you're
anyway.
talking about.
So he had them cut a bunch of branches off and then start wiring these trees. All wrong, all wrong. So I got there a little bit late, and I started just kind of walked in and started helping everybody. And I saw this one was wired wrong, this one was wired wrong, this one's wired really bad. Okay, who's doing this? Who's teaching these people this? And he says, well, I am. I said, it's all wrong. Everybody listen up. So we had to do some diagrams, and we took wire off and we put it back on. I said, sometimes you can wire bad and it'll work. This is not going to work at all. So we had to take it all off and start over again. He actually thanked me after we got done. He said, yeah, you were late getting there. I said, well, yeah. I've got 9-year-old twins and They have activities at the time they're 8. And I said, I just don't have time to get here right on time.
And you're cutting all the branches that are hanging straight down,
Yes,
right?
anything down on the bottom of the branches, and I could do that later. I'm just know where I'm going with it, and this will kind of help me route the wire where I'm going.
Right, it makes it easier to wire.
And we
Clears
could
the path.
shorten this branch even more, but we can also shorten it. You can shorten it 2 ways. You can shorten it by cutting it. You can shorten it by bending it. So we're going to bend this. And I've got it anchored really well. You never want to just start here, go around the trunk, and come out on the branch, okay? You want to anchor it someplace else. So if you can find another like-sized branch, which I don't really want to go up to this one, I could, which I might go ahead since it's about the same as this one. But generally, it's the next branch up, so because you are working from the bottom up. But since we need to get this branch here, I'm going to go ahead and take this on around. You want to make fairly wide sweeps, about a 45-degree angle on the wire. Never too close because the wire acts like if you get the bands too close together, they act like a spring. So it'll never stay where it is. If you stretch it out a little bit more, it actually will stay where you're putting it, okay? And you'll find that if you take I usually use the example where I take a piece of copper wire and put it around my finger and I'm able to bend it, but if I stretch it out, it's very much harder to bend, so. But yeah, keep it close to the trunk as you can, unless it's a younger tree, and I do give it some room. If I know it's a tree that's going to grow fast and cut in fairly quickly, Scots pines is an example because they're very strong growers. But you want to give it a little bit of room between it. But this juniper, it's going to be on for a couple of years, and I really don't care if it cuts in. In fact, I'd like for it to cut in a little bit. That's one thing I learned in Europe when I was studying over there. He had a lot of junipers with wire almost buried into the trunk. And yeah, he says you have to let them cut in, especially on rough bark trees, because it acts like, as it heals, it acts like a cast or a brace. Because as those furrows that you took the wire.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why you don't pinch is if when you pinch and you pull, you cause cellular damage back behind where you're pinching. Okay, so you may lose some of the fine growth right at the base of that pinch. If you cut, the cut only destroys or can damage. If you use a sharp pair of scissors, you're good, but it will only turn brown there or not turn brown at all. So that's the reason. Okay.
And are all junipers like that?
Yes. Apply that much pressure. It's just funny what you learn from different people. I always try to get one wrap around the trunk before I go out onto a branch too. Never wire any of the small branches against the branch that you're wiring to. And people say, well, I can't do that. Yes, you can.
I know.
Yes, you
Takes
can.
a lot more time.
It does, but once you do it a lot like this, I mean, it's basically kind of just moving the branches and bringing the wire in, and it'll make its own path. Okay?
But it's a common mistake at first.
Oh, it is. And I see it done all the time. And people say, well, I can't do it. And same with crossing wires. Well, you can't wire this branch without crossing. Yes, you can. There's a way to do that. And I always like on smaller wire and on smaller branches, floppy branches, I'll hook it and bring it back around to hold that end. And that's another thing I was taught in Japan by Bjorn, that if you have a whole bunch of these floppy things, he'll bring a wire around under a branch and then bring a loop back around and catch all that foliage just to bring it up. I saw a lot of that done. I'd never seen that done before.
So you got a wire going between branches?
You got
at the
going
ends.
from branch to branch at the
Yeah,
end,
at
just
the
holding
end.
that whole thing up, just as like a crutch. And it made a whole lot of sense, but again, I'd never ever been taught that. You never leave a wire just out there someplace.
Unless you're at our place. And there's wires all over everywhere.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
How often do you see?
This way, from the front. The tree always needs to look good from the front.
I was
And
going to
you
say,
do
I
that.
like, it looks nice.
Yeah, it just looks better to do that. Yeah, so I saw one that Adam Levine in Florida did it, a ficus. And he took every one of them out, kind of came up and down, and then brought the tips of them up. Do that, but yeah, that's okay. If that's the way he wants to teach it, that's fine. And his trees look good.
I like anything that's more natural.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And these did not look natural.
Was that trunk bent like that?
It was already done. Yeah, they're grown to alongside, so they put a little bit of a curve in them to do that.
It was actually, see that down there? That was part of the trees, blue. Yeah. And when he did that, it created a little
Yeah, right there.
spot down there.
You see where I separated
So
them?
we just use that to make the sure.
Yeah.
Basically torn too.
Yeah.
Literally.
The other one's in
Just
that
like
bag.
Samson.
Yeah, that's what I saw that without a pot, and I'm thinking,
This would make like a nice raft.
Yeah. It would. It's already there.
So see how much you left, Patty?
This one, I kind of had that in mind. That's why I eliminated that back half. Yeah, there we go.
Cool.
Can you kind of turn him?
Yeah. See?
I didn't know we should start trimming.
Yeah, that's what I say. So just to begin with, we're going to be.
Okay.
Yeah, there are special techniques on the candle that I'm familiar with. So the springtime, during the winter time, what you do is come in here and you pull off an intermediate. You take every terminal back, and we're going to do this. We're going to get a lot thinner. So you take every terminal back to be able to see the front. But let's look
I
at
like this side where I'm sitting pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, we got to look kind of where the apex, where the natural apex is going to be, but we can always make a new apex too. Yeah, I mean, if we create some gins out of these stumps, I think we're going to be able to see more of it from this way. And I really like how that kind of comes this way and kind of this.
And then up here in the top, and this
Yeah.
comes up and swirls. right
Yeah, I
this
kind of
way.
like that. Yeah, so this would be the apex up in here. Yeah. Okay. Start cutting.
Go ahead.
Remove that, because that's not necessary. Did you buy a bark tool?
Yes.
May I use it real quick?
Christen it.
We're gonna show how this works.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
So, and don't be gentle about it, okay?
Watch his elbow in your face.
That's what's good, because it's really hard to gin dead wood branches that have been dead for a while.
Right.
These take care of it, no problem at all.
Interesting tool.
It works fantastic.
And you don't even take some, you can chip the wood.
Didn't you also use that to do shard?
Yeah, you can, yeah. Yeah, you can use it to go down the trunk as well. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's called a bark cutter, is that what it is?
He calls it a bark stripper.
Bark stripper.
Yeah, they're made in Italy, which they've got the sign on it, by a guy named Rudy.